question that I would like to address today is associated or related to monotheism and whether monotheism is a political decision rather than a religious decision. I'm going to try to explore a little bit the region from various traditions. The Greek, the Roman is basically an extension of the Greek tradition. Then you have the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian tradition, Egyptians. Then a tradition that I don't think it's genuine, which is the Judeo tradition. I don't think they have anything that is proper to them. It's mostly, I don't know if I believe it's mostly the story of what we call Judaism. It's a post-exilic thing that came from Babylon. So I will explore it in that direction, or I will explore it from the tradition of the area, which is the Egyptian tradition. But I don't think I can talk about a Judaic tradition in terms of monotheism, because I have question about that too. And then Islam. Christianity also, I will discuss it in a different way, but Islam, I think, is definitely the peak of what I can call, or what we should call, real pure monotheism. That means real pure dictatorship. And that's how I approach it. So when I talk about monotheism, I'm not talking about something that I am fond of. I'm talking about a fact in a region with varied powers, various policy, various tribes, etc. And all of a sudden, they get together and they make some major decision. Something must have worked there. So let me start from the beginning now. And the beginning, unfortunately, it's not the Judeo tradition. We have the great Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian tradition, and we go there that the main force became, or main power became Marduk. Marduk is not a creator. He didn't create. He is really a third tier or fourth tier, basically God. He has nothing to do with the creation, with anything powerful. He came or became prominent at the time of Hammurabi. We are talking about 1900, I think, BC here. And Hammurabi was planning to build a state, a strong state, a powerful state with a central government. And of course, Hammurabi couldn't manage this whole story with various gods. Polytheism did not work, or should not work, if you want to establish a central government. You cannot have a central government with polytheism. You need either to move to a monolatry or monotheism. Monolatry in the sense that, yes, there is one God, but you are willing to tolerate other gods. Monotheism is only one God. And I think for a central government, you need one God. You cannot have a central government in the past with various gods, because your people will report to different higher authorities, and that will be really questionable. You basically need to make a decision. There is one God only, not because you really believe that there is one God, but because you believe that your authority and your government needs a central power. So, as I said, Marduk was a third or fourth layer, basically tier, authority and God, and he got to his, wherever he was, by tricks, by coup d'etats, by many possibility, but he was definitely not the creator. First of all, he was not the main god. He was nothing that we should expect to rule a place or an area or a government. Hammurabi needed something like that. But of course, we know that the rule of Hammurabi didn't last long. By the time of his death and within years, his power basically collapsed, or like his rule collapsed. And I don't know, I should blame Hammurabi because, first of all, he received his laws from Shamash, or Shamash was basically overseeing these laws. Shamash is the god, or Shams is the god of sun, or something like that. I mean, and then you have Marduk that is in charge at one point, and you have Hammurabi, a representative of God. So really he messed up. He did not give his own people a clear view of this new central power with one God, one power, one authority. And there is nothing here to comment except that Hammurabi really screwed up. He needed to put one God in charge of everything. Either Shamash or Marduk should have been in charge of everything. And I think that would have facilitated his task, but he didn't do that. And at that time, 2000 BC, really concentrating power and rule and government in one hand or under one entity was not that easy. Monotheism, as I probably mentioned earlier, is a late development in terms of divinity or approach to divinity. It's not the original approach to a divinity. I mean, you have people, I don't know whether I can talk about their intelligence or not. This is not about intelligence, but they will see different things happening in their life. And it needs a rational decision to put all of those things that are happening in your life, between the thunder, between the threats coming from animals, between natural disasters, and between basically clan issues and fighting for mates and for food and etc., to put them under one umbrella. You need to make a rational decision, and that rational decision took time to develop. So during the time of Hammurabi, he was smart, he was good, he made some major changes in the history of mankind by putting those laws, those 285 or whatever laws that he came up with. That was smart, but that wasn't enough, and that wasn't also the time. Now, let's continue here to Egypt. Egypt has also some approach to monotheism that is, so first of all, Ra, the main god, was not really the main creator. He didn't create everything. Ra himself was created from chaos or something like that, but he wasn't a main creator. So Ra is not the equivalent of any monotheist god, and I mean here Allah. Allah is really the epitome of what we call a monotheistic approach to divinity. In any case, Ra, so he kind of was created from chaos, came out after that, something like that, and that's what we can call Ra. But Ra really couldn't make it that well. He didn't rule. He wasn't exactly the ruler, except later when he became Amun Ra, but that's really a later development. What happened after that, or in between, is the ruler god. Here I'm talking about Osiris, Isis, and Horus, and Seth. That whole story together gives us an idea, or give us an idea about the connection between divinity and rule. Horus became, not the elder Horus, the younger Horus, who is the son of Osiris and Isis. He became a good ruler somehow, supposedly, etc., and a god, and he was worshipped. And of course, the main one goes back to Osiris. And Osiris was, when he became really the big shot in Egypt, he was dead already. So that was really a major change, and that's what we will see in Christianity later. I mean, there is no Christianity without resurrection. So, I mean, Christ was really a loser in many ways. I mean, he spent his entire... I mean, if we think he's God and came down to earth to do all of this stuff, he ended up with not even one single follower recognizing him and going to the cross and dying and giving his life. It's only because and after his resurrection that he became a big shot. So resurrection is important, and I think it's as important as the resurrection of Osiris. So we can see here we are not dealing with a living God. We are dealing with a dead or dying, let's not dying, dead God, that is either Osiris or Jesus. Okay, so when did God, the creator, the all-powerful, the everything we think, and the ruler of the whole world became important? It is really with Akhenaton. Akhenaton made some kind of major decision by switching from Amun to Atun for the worship. And sorry for my pronunciation, but that's a major switch that happened, and extremely important also a switch that happened. Amun-Ra was an extremely important god, it's true, but we were still dealing with some form of monolatry. Monolatry, again, I will say that there is one main principal God, but we do not deny the existence of others. We don't pray for them, they are there, but really we will tolerate them, but we will go, and our faith and confession and allegiance goes to the main. But we do not deny the existence of others, like in the case of Amun-Ra. It was with Atun, with Akhenaton, that the decision was made. He's the only one. He's the creator and he's the ruler, and I'm his representative. That is Amenhotep the Fourth, or as we know him, Akhenaton. I'm it. So here a major decision that was made at that time by Akhenaton. He has one God who is behind everything, and I am his representative. Actually, I'm more than his representative. I'm a God too. This approach to divinity with Akhenaton is extremely important, and I think that was a major change. And remember, Akhenaton also, by the time he moved from monolatry to monotheism, that is only Atun is the good God and the only God that is ruling, it was also the switch from a decentralized government to a centralized government. At that time, the orders were issued to destroy every sign, every mention of any other god on earth, and just one will be left, and that is Atun. And of course, Akhenaton, his status is definitely very strange. He's both his representative, but he is God himself. Now, I was reading this comment in Britannica about Atun, and it says at the end, Atun worship was not fully monotheistic because the pharaoh himself was considered a god, nor was it a direct precursor of monotheistic religions such as Judaism. This is really crap. What is this story about not really the precursor of Judaism? Because, I mean, Judaism was not a monotheistic religion either. We know that up to the pre-exilic stage, Jews worshipped along with Yahweh Asherah. And we have like signs, and we have really prayers going to both Yahweh and his consort. Yahweh, that's my pronunciation. It could be Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever that is. But in any case, prayer were going to Jehovah and his consort or wife, Asherah. And it's really, there is nothing wrong with that. The Jews were not monotheist, and there is no problem with that. I mean, I know they want to sell us the idea that they were the only and the first monotheist. They were not. If there was one monotheist that started this whole kind of story, it should be Akhenaton, not Moses, who we don't know whether he existed or not. Okay, so let me go back to my whole story. So the story from Britannica, I think it wasn't put together right. I think they were trying to defend an approach or an idea or some group of people, but that's not accurate. Now, you can be a representative of God also within a monotheistic religion. And let me give you some examples here. Islam, especially with the Sufis. The Sufis were pure, really, that we cannot really claim anything about it. The Sufi was really pure monotheist. Still, they consider themselves, especially with the idea of what we call al-ittihad wal-hulul, unity and ascendance, when God ascend to you or descend in you. You can reach a point with your spiritual, during your spiritual journey, that you will meet God and you will become God. But that doesn't mean that God is not one, it's not unique. God is still unique. So the story that because Akhenaton was God too, that the Egyptians during his time were not monotheist, no, that doesn't make any sense. No, they were really a pure monotheist, and Akhenaton was the representative of that model. Now, when we talk about this, we are gonna skip another story, or actually I will cover it briefly, which is Zeus. Zeus, Almighty Zeus, may he be my Lord forever. Almighty Zeus, as I said in a prior video, is the most humane God. He cheats, he rapes, he lies, he deceives, you name it, he's there, and that was Zeus. Zeus also was not a creator also. He's a third Tyre, I think, god. So, his father Cronus had a coup d'etat against his father Uranus, and then Zeus came and had a coup d'etat against his father Cronus, took over and became the ruler. But for all we know, Zeus didn't create anything. He's a minor god. He had thunder somehow. Thunder is similar to what Jehovah, it looks like the Sinitic god had. The same for Marduk, same for many gods who became really important. And when we talk about thunder here, I'm not gonna try to be too smart, but thunder means a lot of rain, a lot of water. I think it's an agricultural revolution that took place in many places in the world, and those gods or rulers who managed that or were ruling at that time became all of a sudden main principal gods, not because of any extra power they had, but thunder was associated with major rains, with major floods probably, and it is very important to have those capacity and those gods really rose to power because of something related to rain. And we probably can also conclude that the story of Cain and Abel is also related to some kind of water revolution or thunder revolution or something like that. Now, let me continue here. So this is the story that I covered. The only one that I am left with is Christianity. Do I consider Christianity as a form of monotheism? Yes, in 313 or 14, when Constantine declared Christianity the main religion of Rome. Before that, I consider Christianity as a form of monolatry. Christianity would and could have tolerated other gods as the same as Judaism. They were both willing to consider or to tolerate other gods, despite the fact that they were both trying to say that they were pure monotheists. They were not. I think Constantine made that decision, and Constantine is an extremely smart man. He needed to build his state, to stabilize his state. He couldn't build a state on many gods. You don't need many gods when you had one central government. You need one god. And that's what Constantine did. Now, the last thing that I will be covering here is related to Muhammad. Muhammad is an amazing man. I'm not religious. I'm not saying he's amazing because I'm not religious. Don't fast. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything. But Muhammad was a king, was a ruler, was a lawgiver, and was a prophet, and was a fighter and a warrior. Now, to combine all of those, he needed an ideology behind him. The ideology that he needed was one God. I don't think the God that he promoted at the beginning of his career or ministry as a prophet was a God that was superior to other gods. In fact, we have some kind of mention, you worship your gods and I will worship mine. We have some kind of forms of monolatry at the beginning of Islam. But by the time Muhammad moved to Medina, and this is for you guys to explore, by the time he moved to Medina and established some form of government, Muhammad switched from some form of monolatry to a pure monotheism. There is one God. And please, guys, remember this. If you need to establish a government, strong, stable, and central, you need also to give it one God. You cannot establish a strong, stable, central government on two or more gods. So the decision is really not religious. The decision is political. Muhammad needed one God because he needed one state, one powerful state. Muhammad was not, I think if historically speaking we go back and Muhammad ended up cooperating with another government or with another state or with another entity in Saudi Arabia or Arabia back then, he probably would have had his God a little bit more tolerant of others. But because the idea was more practical to have one God ruling over everything, it made more sense to be a pure monotheist, and that's what Muhammad did. So, the conclusion to this talk is about monotheism as a successful form of establishing a central government. You cannot establish. So, the gods prior to monotheism in any form before that were either polytheist or monolatry. Monolatry could have accommodated other gods without threatening the system. With Muhammad, and I think Muhammad, as I said, is the epitome and is really the peak of what we can call monotheism. Muhammad probably during his time realized that he needed a central government, and it made a lot of sense back then to have a central government. And let's remember, he's the only prophet who built a state, who ruled the state, who went to war for that state, and who also came up with some rules, social and other rules for that state, is Muhammad. No other prophet made as much success and as Muhammad. So he is really a novelty in this business. So monotheism is a political decision. Monolatry could have worked in states where government were not really very clear. Polytheism would have been the best solution for other kind of forms of government where you have more sources of power, where city-states existed, and you can really accommodate that. Muhammad and Islam, there were no city-states, there were no kind of other groups or power or centers of government there was nothing. There was one, and when you have one, that means you have one God, one prophet, and one source of law. Monotheism is the beginning of dictatorship, in my opinion, and for all states or groups that wanted to switch from diversified sources of power or stuff like this to central government, central powers, monotheism was the solution. That was both for Europe as well as for the Middle East. One thing that probably I will explore more later is that monotheism was smart, especially for Christianity and Islam. They proposed something else in the afterlife. I mean, what is it for worries and people who died for faiths that didn't have a clear opinion of afterlife? What are you going to do after? It's gone? No, especially for Islam, and that's Muhammad was really a genius. He created a whole world for the men or women who died for Islam. So he didn't stop their life here, he gave them an extension somewhere else. And that was an extremely important development when it comes to but this part I will develop it in another talk. Thank you guys.